Hello and welcome to another interesting session of the story series Reflections, where we share stories to recharge and rejuvenate. And today we have a very special guest, Margaret Parker. So a very warm welcome, Margaret. Margaret was born in Ireland and trained in England as a nurse and a midwife. After coming to Australia, she spent time in PNG as a lay missionary. Returning to Australia, she married and had 4 children and now has many grandchildren as well. And she has been practicing Raj Yoga meditation for over 20 years now. And today, Margaret is going to talk about then and now, which is her journey where she developed a love for various faiths and how she became, or how she was Irish Catholic and became an Australian Brahma Kumari. So a very interesting story and a journey. So looking forward to hearing your story, Margaret. So
Thank you
over
very
to you and welcome once again.
Thank you, Lata. As Lata said, I was born in Ireland in 1943. And when I was 18, I went to England. So of course, before that, my main connection with people was as Catholics, growing up as a Catholic in Ireland. And most of my friends, in fact, I'd say all of my friends were Catholic. And then I had an experience of going to England. And that was a very strange experience because it was everything was very new, very different. And I suppose one of the biggest differences was the question of religion, because where I had always mixed with people of my own faith, all of a sudden I was mixing with people who had different, but they were all Christian, which is interesting. And that's the thing about religion, is that there are so many different branches. And one of the first things I did when I was in the nursing, in the hospital, we had a nurses Christian fellowship. So I thought, oh, that sounds nice. I'm going to join that. But of course, I was the only one there who was Catholic. And mainly they felt that Catholics were sort of on the wrong track, that they didn't quite understand Christianity, and that they worshipped statues and things like that, which is a little bit away from the truth, but anyhow, that was how they felt. So I went along there. One of the first things I think that I learned from them was I learned how to talk to God, because before that, in the Catholic faith, it's very formalistic and ritualistic, and there are very set prayers which you recite. But I know sometimes, I remember there was a saying, I know I often say my prayers, but do I ever pray? And do the feelings of my heart go with the words I say? And I think that's what I learned in England. I learned how to pray. I learned how to talk to God. I learned how to develop a relationship with God. And it's interesting because actually my teenage years were mainly spent because my brother had become a Trappist monk, and they had a guest house at the monastery, and I used to spend my holidays down there. So I was very much immersed in that type of spirituality of Catholicism, the Benedictine order, the Cistercian order. So I really had a lot to do with faith at that time. But as I say, I didn't know how to pray. So I found that a really good thing, that it was like a window was opened on my spirituality. And one of the things I used to love to do was go to church with people of different Christian denominations. So if they were going to church, I would go to church with them. And I don't think I ever really invited them to come to church with me. I don't know why, it didn't occur to me, but I really enjoyed that. I suppose you could call it informality of praying to God, talking to God, and having that lovely relationship. So I studied as a nurse and midwife. And when I was doing my midwifery, the tutor that I had was English, but she had spent years in Australia before coming back to England. And she would tell us fascinating stories about Australia. And another thing that had happened to me as a teenager was I used to read books like A Town Like Alice and Requiem for a Wren. So that got me interested in Australia. And I was talking to my friend Coral, who was my tutor, and she was planning to go back to Australia. And I remember saying to her, "Oh, I'd love to go to Australia." And she said, "Well, it's easy. All you have to do is apply under the £10 POM scheme." So that's what I did. I applied as an assistant migrant, and I came to Australia. And I suppose one of the things I thought was how fortunate I had been to have this opportunity to come to Australia. One of the first things I did, of course, was seek out the Catholic Church and go to Mass on Sundays. And I met a very good friend of mine who was a Croatian Catholic. And she was in an organization called the Legion of Mary, which was like a spiritual social worker organization. So I joined with her. And then after that, I joined a group called the Paulian Association after St. Paul. And they had a lay missionary group that went to Papua New Guinea, various jobs, mainly teaching and nursing. But sometimes I remember one friend, he was a pilot with the Mission Aviation Fellowship, which was a very important work there because they didn't have that many roads there. So a lot of the travel was by plane, small planes. So anyhow, I thought about it and I thought I'd like to go to Papua New Guinea. So I went to Bougainville. And in Bougainville, again, it was a very interesting experience because it was a very small mission hospital. It was little more than an aid post, but also had a maternity section. And there were times that I felt totally out of my depth. And one of my favorite occupations was to go into the church and just pray to God and say, "Please help me," because I really did feel completely out of my depth. So I did that for a couple of years. And then my parents were ill, so I went back to Ireland. But I really felt that my future lay in Australia. So I came back. And interestingly, when I came for a short time, I came under the migration scheme. But when I came to settle, I actually paid my own way. So it was an Irish way of doing things, but it was good. So then I came to Australia. I came to Blacktown and I worked at Blacktown Hospital. And this is where I met my friend Pat. And she later became my bridesmaid and godmother to my first child, Josephine. So I spent a couple of years in Papua New Guinea, came back. And one of the things we needed to do, we needed to have a support group for returned lay missionaries, because the greatest culture shock is coming back to your own culture and finding that it's strangely different. Because firstly, it has changed, but mainly you have changed. So I had changed a lot. And so I joined this group of a support group for returned lay missionaries. And we used to hold meetings and go on outings and have chats and things like that. And it was there that I met my husband. He was also in the same group. And I remember at the time, he said, I just started chatting him up, as one does. And he said, "Oh, I spend most of my time on the South Coast." Well, he might as well have said the South Pole. So I just thought to myself, that would have been nice, and just dismissed it. But in fact, it wasn't to be dismissed. And after about a year, we got married and had 4 children. And we now have 4 grandchildren. So the youngest child now is 42, will be 42 this year. And the youngest grandchildren will be 7, 8 actually this year. Yes, so time marched on. And then I suppose I was still occasionally going to church, but I'd sort of slackened off and it didn't seem to have the same relevance for me anymore. So then I was working as a midwife in Wollongong, and a friend of mine was interested in Reiki. And she would bring home pamphlets. The Brahma Kumaris would leave their pamphlets with like-minded people, as Reiki are. And she brought home these pamphlets for a retreat in the Southern Highlands. And one of the affirmations we used as shift workers was, well, if I'm off, I'll go to it, if I'm not too bad. And as it turned out, both of us were off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that weekend. So there was nothing to stop us going. So that was my first introduction to the Brahma Kumaris. And you know, I just thought, being the mother of 4 children, they were teenagers by now, and I thought, oh, well, I'll have a weekend. I'll have all my meals cooked for me. I can hack vegetarian for a weekend. What's to lose? And I did not have any expectations other than that. It was just going to be a nice, pleasant weekend. And after that, I'd get back to my usual lifestyle. But it turned out to be a life-changing experience. And I remember that moment because the person who was facilitating the retreat said, the mistake that we make is that we identify with these bodies, whereas in fact we are souls. And I remember a little voice in my head said, I knew that. But the interesting thing about the experience was that as soon as I realized that I am a soul, my next thought was, now I know who God is. And even though I felt that I'd had this relationship with God, but it was like I didn't have the full picture. And I really felt when I did this weekend with the Brahma Kumaris that I had the full picture. But at the same time, there was a question in my mind, and that was, how do I reconcile what I'm learning now with what I've previously believed? And I knew that to the extent that I could do that I would stay with the Brahma Kumaris. And 24 actually years later, I'm still here. So I certainly was able to do that. I found points of relevance all along the way with the knowledge that I was learning through the Brahma Kumaris and the understanding that I had of spirituality before that. And I suppose what I really like is the idea that spirituality is the thing that unites us because we're all spiritual beings. We may come from different backgrounds, different countries, different languages, different cultures, different religions. But the one thing that we all have in common is that we are spiritual beings, and our spirituality is that beautiful uniting factor that we've got. So that probably was the thing that I really enjoyed most about this spiritual path. But the other thing, of course, where I started off was talking about how I got interested in other religions. And one of the things that I've been involved with through the Brahma Kumaris is interfaith. We started in Wollongong, I think it's probably could even be up to 10 years ago now, that we started, it was called the Illawarra Women's Interfaith Network. So the acronym for that was IWIN. And I joined that, and I spent a lot of time just interacting with different faiths. And one of the really interesting ones that I did, there was a group in Sydney run by Bianca Pace, who has passed away last year. And she started for the 21st of September, which the International Day of Peace we used to hold a prayer vigil. Sometimes it was 24 hours, sometimes it was 12 hours, but we would hold it firstly on that lovely landing just down from the Great Hall of Sydney University. I think it's called Victoria Park. And we used to hold these prayer vigils there. And of course, one of the things about the concept of prayer or meditation, the definition that I learned of prayer is that prayer is the lifting up of the mind and heart to God. And meditation is exactly the same thing. We're connecting with God through our minds and through our hearts. And I suppose probably the difference is in praying we talk, but in meditation we listen. So it's a lovely connection, a lovely relationship, a lovely way of being. So the Brahma Kumaris has taught me that. It has given me this wonderful opportunity, and I value it so much. So I've come a long way from an Irish Catholic. Oh, by the way, I suppose I should say that as soon as I became engaged to my husband, one of the first things he said was, you have to apply for Australian citizenship. So of course I did that. And so I'm now an Australian BK, and I still feel incredibly fortunate.
That's wonderful, Margaret. Lovely to hear the story where you were, and that's so many decades ago. 1943 you were born, you said. and and you know, seeing so many different faiths and cultures, and now understanding what spirituality means. So do you feel knowing a bit about all those different faith and cultures helped you understand spirituality more, or in a better way, like opened your mind or the way you looked at things?
I think definitely in a better way, because I think one of the most important things is what you've just said, which is an open mind. And not only an open mind, but an open heart as well. Because I think one of the things I learned about spirituality is that it's got nothing to do with the head and everything to do with the heart. It's about creating a loving relationship with the source of all love, which, what could be better than that?
So yes, it just develops that feeling of oneness and connecting with everyone.
Yes, yes, yes. As I say, the one thing that we have in common is our spirituality. So it's a wonderful thing.
And now that you're meditating and practicing spirituality, are you communicating more with God? Like you used to talk to God, you said.
Yes. I suppose what I'm practicing really at the moment is listening, because I never have any problem talking. But keeping quiet is the thing I need to practice.
Yeah. And how do you think you feel when you are communicating or listening? Like, what do you feel when you get some answers, in a way, if I can say?
I suppose one of the things that I feel most of all is I feel looked after. I feel protected. I feel that, that God as my Father is really parenting me very well and meeting all my needs so lovingly. And there are times that there are challenges on the spiritual path. There are challenges in life anyway, but I can always go and turn to him, and he's always there for me, which is such a beautiful thing.
And also, maybe we can communicate and with God in various relationships. So you mentioned about Father as one, but maybe as a friend or any others as well.
I suppose the main relationships that I value are that of Father is the main one, but certainly friend Friend is a big one, and I think I value friendship a lot anyway. So having God as my friend is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. So, as you said about this beautiful journey that you had, maybe it's a good time that we have some little meditation practice. So our online viewers can also experience a bit of that beautiful communication that we have inside our mind. So
That would be
shall
lovely.
we? Yes, let's go on the journey of meditation for a little while now.
And thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks, Margaret.
Focusing my thoughts on my own inner being, I begin to think about who I am. I move my thoughts away from my name, my role, my possessions, and my health, all the temporary things which earth me. I'm seeking to experience the I that owns all these. Who am I? I feel myself as living energy. I am a concentrated spark of life energy, and I'm radiating light. I let all the pettiness and problems drift away and allow myself to feel very light, free from all burdens and worries. I remember a time previously in my life when I felt like this, perhaps as a child or on holiday. No fear, no heaviness, just me feeling easy and light, glad to be alive. Now, in my mind's eye, I see a field ahead of me. And in this field, I see a huge, beautiful helium-filled balloon attached to a basket. The balloon is shimmering in the sunlight with a deep blue-green color. I step into the basket of the balloon and seat myself very comfortably. And the balloon is launched. As my balloon lifts higher and higher, any remaining heaviness and burden drops from my mind, and the light energy that is me begins to shine and sparkle like a star. Even my body begins to feel light and weightless. My balloon drifts past sun-drenched open fields of green. High above, floating, drifting. I'm floating now over a crystal blue lake, surrounded by gentle rolling hills. From the lake rises a refreshing breeze. I feel it on my face, on my cheeks, playing with my hair. As I drift further and further across the lake, I feel very inspired by the beauty and peace that is all around me. I notice that the peacefulness of the scene that I'm watching is now becoming a part of me. I feel peaceful. I am peaceful. I don't need to go anywhere to find peace. It's part of my own identity, my own original nature. I concentrate my thoughts fully, and I experience the quality of peace.
Oh, thank you once again, Margaret, for sharing that wonderful story with us today. We thoroughly enjoyed it and learned a lot as well. And thank you for the online viewers who have been with us. Hope you took some benefit out of the story as well. And if you'd like to know more about the Brahma Kumaris in Australia, please do visit our website, which is www.brahmakumaris.org.au. It's on the screen right now, so you can make a note if you like. Various events and programs that are organized are available on the website. So thank you once again, and we will be back in a couple of weeks with another interesting story to share. So till then, take care and Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.